Hello, everybody. Thank you all for coming out to the Bexley Public Library tonight. My name is Zach Parrish. I'm the programming librarian here at the library. Just a few quick housekeeping notes before we get started. Tonight's program is a hybrid program, so we're very lucky to have you all in person at the library, but we also have a live stream audience at home. So at the end of tonight's conversation, if you have any questions, just raise your hand and we will bring over a mic, and that way those joining online will be able to hear what is being asked in the room. For those online, if you're live streaming on our YouTube channel, you can just type your questions into the chat at any time and we will try to get them asked at the end. For anyone who hasn't heard, this year is the library's centennial year, so we have our centennial guide. If you haven't seen it, please pick one up in the back. We have many wonderful programs planned throughout the year. I'm just going to highlight a couple coming up really quick. This Sunday, May 19th at 2 o'clock, we have our next 10 Decades Book Club. We're picking a book from each decade that the library has been open, and this Sunday is The Lottery and Other Stories by Shirley Jackson. So if you haven't talked about the lottery in a while, join us on Sunday. It's a light read. It's easy. Just as fun as the lottery. We have trivia at the Drexel next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. So you can come on out to the Drexel and join us for some trivia. We have the Summer Community Read Kickoff on Thursday, May 30th at 3 o'clock. And the final program I'll highlight, we have our next Bexley Centennial Author Series with Hanif Abdurraqib and Franny Choi in conversation. That will be Thursday, June 6th. At 7 o'clock. So we're really looking forward to hosting Hanif and Franny for that conversation. So we hope you can join us. For tonight's presenters, we had a last minute ask, so we're very lucky to have Dara Schwartz, who is a resident of Bexley and the owner and creative director of Dorista Dips. Prior to launching Dorista Dips, Dara worked as a creative director at a top 10 ad agency. And in 2010, she decided it was time to trade in her design books for cookbooks and followed her heart into the kitchen. Dara is a world traveler who loves exploring new cultures through their cuisines and flavors. And much like its founder, Dorista Dips has a story to tell, one of local pride and world appreciation. And for tonight's featured speaker, we're very, very lucky to have Chef Avishar Barua, who is the owner of the restaurant Joya's in Worthington and Agni in the Brewery District. Who's been to Joya's? It's wonderful. Who's been to Agni? Very cool. He has competed on hit cooking shows like Top Chef and Beat Bobby Flay. Spoiler alert, he did indeed beat Bobby Flay. And Chef Barua has been voted the best chef in Columbus for 2 consecutive years by Columbus Underground, and Agni was named the best new restaurant of 2023 by Columbus Monthly. He was also a semifinalist for a 2024 James Beard Award, and on top of being a world-class chef, Avishar finds joy in building community through humor, hospitality, and all things culinary, and we're very happy to have him here tonight. I'll turn it over to Dara and Avishar.
Well, you already missed the whole show because we could not stop dialoguing, and there was so much content. I wish this was recorded, but we will try to replay some of the good bites that we got. But I wanted to start out with a first memorable interaction I had with you. This is March or April 2020. COVID shut down. I was on track to open my first restaurant in Bud Dairy. I was one of the chef partners. And as everything happened with COVID, there was just a lot of upset, closing businesses, and just a lot of, I would say, suffering, at least for me, in that moment. So I had to, with my business, I had to focus on Dorista Dips that you just heard about. And I could not put attention to opening up a restaurant, especially in a pandemic, and I had to make the tough decision to not go forward with it. But at that time, I literally approved clearance for my equipment, this is before the shutdown happened, to be delivered and unpalleted, if that's the word, and plugged in all brand new equipment. And then the shutdown happened, and just like a car off the lot, it loses value immediately. So now I just put a fortune, in my head a fortune, of money into all this brand new, like shiny equipment. I do not have a restaurant anymore. It's not gonna be launched, and what do I do? So I reached out to my favorite people in the whole world. Avishar was one of them, and said, hey, do you need a fryer? Like, do you need an oven? And like at that point, like you're lucky to recoup 50% of it. So I took my 4-year-old with me at that time, down to Bud Dairy Food Hall, met Avishar. I felt like a back alley transaction. And like, it was probably awkward for you because it was probably like, you're lost my gain, I'm so sorry, what do we do about the situation? And felt, you know, it could have felt transactional, but it didn't, because it wasn't like, here's $400. It was, here is a massive jug. And when I say, like, if you ever seen fryer oil, like the containers like Cisco comes with to deliver in restaurants, you can't even see like the size at Costco. I think it might have been like somewhere around 5 gallons. And it was of chili oil. And I literally, like, it was love language that I was like, we share and speak the same language. And it was almost his message to me of like, take care of yourself and bathe in this, because I see you.
Please don't bathe in it.
And I see your suffering, and I see your loss, and I was like, yes. And I sure did bathe in it. And like I said, this was March or April, and I think it was finished by the summer. And the joke is, like, I'm probably gonna go to cardiac arrest I'm a ticking time bomb. Like, it's so delicious. But it was with love, and you nurtured me and my soul. And that, like, the unexpected, like, this is just reflective of his heart. But I wanna talk about the chili oil, because knowing you, like, I wanna say, and correct me if I'm wrong, chili oil was a very pivotal turning point ingredient for you. Like your newfound affection for it in your, I think perhaps your college kitchen, and your discovery of Chinese cooking. So can you take us there to that point of time of what that meant for you and how this started with Chinese food and chili?
It's a very, very good introduction. That's amazing. This is my PR now. I gotta hire you. Chili oil is interesting, and actually, come to think of it, a lot of the times when we find exciting things in food, at one time you'll say, is someone copying me? Because we're all feeling the same things, and you realize we all actually are tied together with food, so it only makes sense that we converge upon the same things. So as a child, I didn't really care for food too much, and the only food that we kind of had access to was either fast food or Chinese food. What made Chinese food very exciting was always that little red oil they put on the side, and depending on the restaurant that you went to, if you went to like Hunan Line or Hunan House back in the day, they had like a very special version of that, and we thought of that as like the essence of like what makes Chinese cuisine your own, because you get to like add it as you wish. Like you can make it as spicy as you want to. You want to make it spicy, you add 4 or 5. My dad and my uncle would take competitions. They would just take ladles, and my uncle had like a little bald spot up here. It would like sweat there, and so, hopefully he's not watching this right now. And my dad, my mom would yell at my dad because he would, when you have chili oil, this is important pro tip, if you put it on a soup, it does float to the top. So don't slurp it, because if you slurp, the vapor goes up and you sneeze, and then you cough, and then everybody stares at you in the restaurant. They're like, what are you? Is it too spicy? You know? So that was like a memory, just a simple memory of chili oil. And with that, we were able to bring that into what is like kind of one of our, I would say it's one of the signature things that we like to share with almost everyone. We had a moment, and I forgot that moment for a long time. As school and life went on, I didn't really have a plan. My plan was, I'm gonna be a doctor. There was no ifs, ands, or buts. There was no choosing a pathway. It was just, this is the pathway that you have to go. So I never had the luxury of thinking about anything else. But when I got to college, I realized that food doesn't make itself. Sometimes it does. With AI now, who knows? But back then it was very challenging. There was no Uber Eats. There was none of these things. You'd have to go to a restaurant if you wanted to get the food. Sometimes if it was pizza, you could get it delivered. So I made a decision. I said, you know what? I really want to buy a Wii this year. So I'm going to save money by not spending it on restaurant food. I'm going to make my own food. And this is an interesting thing, is it took me to the library. Because I remember watching PBS as a kid and watching a guy named Martin Yan. He would be making these awesome dishes and had amazing knife skills. And I thought, wow, this is really cool. This guy's showing us how to make Chinese food. He's making it approachable. Maybe I'll use his book. It was called Chinese Cooking for Dummies. I still have it because it has some chili oil on it. So I ended up buying it from the library. So I learned that the library can be a transactional place too, and I can buy any book that I want to. I just have to ruin it. So I took that book and I read this recipe for a stir fry, and I was like, this is so straightforward. It's so easy. It says preheat the pan for 15 minutes. No problem. So I preheated a nonstick pan for 15 minutes. Don't ever do that. It's the number one. And it said, okay, you want to make it. You can customize it however you want to. It was a recipe for kind of like a spicy stir fry, similar to like a Mongolian beef. It said, add the oil. And so I preheated this pan for 15 minutes on campus on the 4th floor. 4th floor is my apartment. And I was like, oh, it's red. This is good. So but I threw it in. It immediately caught on fire. So out of panic, what did I do? I said, you know what? I am going to make it spicy. So I threw a handful of chilies into the oil. And it smoked up. Into the air duct. And it went to all the residents on the 4th floor. And they thought they were being tear gassed. So everybody escaped. And at that moment, I realized that with food, I could have an impact on people, so it's for me. True story, you can ask my roommate, Robbie. He happened to own the building, so it worked out really good, but it was one of the funniest things. I've just never seen somebody it was in the middle of the night, because, I'm pre-med bio major, so 1 in the morning. So just half awake people, they weren't fully clothed, just in the winter time running out. It's an unforgettable memory.
Oh my gosh.
And that is the first time, I guess, I made chili oil inadvertently. After that, of course, I think that we'll probably talk about it later, but I think failure is the most important thing when it comes to cooking and progressing in life, because if you're fully successful, then how are you improving? And through all my failures, I learned that I could achieve things through cooking. The chili oil the first 17 or 18 times was miserable. Maybe 20 times after that was slightly worse because I was reading stuff online, and sometimes the internet can be a very terrible place to give advice. And then that's why I'm not on Reddit as much anymore. And then I went to the place that I went to, the original restaurant. I went to Pune House. I was like, hey, how do you guys make this chili oil? And they said, it's a really good thing. It's just these 17 things, and I can only tell you one of them. It's oil, and it's chilies. And I said, thank you. Really appreciate that. So my quest was not going so well. So eventually, it actually took me to 2 places. I went to New York City. I went to Mission Chinese, which was a very cool restaurant at the time. Interesting Ohio connection, again, through books, which I think this is appropriate to be in a library. But the way that I learned, I did go to culinary school, but I went to culinary school after undergrad. And I had already learned the majority of my cooking by the time I got to culinary school, and that was through books. So I would go to the library, I would buy as many books as possible, and I think this is before Amazon was big too, so I'd go to half-price books or any of these places, buy books at half price, and started building my collection, so to speak. I have probably over 2,000 books right now, but that was a core foundation of how I could get into somebody's mind, because when you write a cookbook, and probably it's you're showing not just a frame, a recipe is just a frame, but most of the time you're showing a whole story. And our responsibility is to convey the story of chili oil, right? Like, it's not just about, hey, I made this thing, here's 45 grams. It's that's whatever. But what does it mean for me to tell you that my uncle was sweating on the head and my dad coughed? Like, now when you think of chili oil, you're gonna think of those things. And I think the profound effect of learning those has been always like one of the coolest things about cooking. And yeah, chili oil is at its core, our chili oil is very complicated. Not impossible. I don't think anything is hard to do, it just takes time. The basis of it, if you want to know, is we take 2 different chilies. We take Tianjin chilies from Sichuan. We take Kashmiri chilies from India, because I have to put a little bit of my culture into it as well. And we treat them 3 different ways. Like some of the things people don't realize is infusions depend. If you have tea and you have tea leaves, it's different than a tea bag, right? It takes a little bit of time. So I can't make up my mind about anything. This is one of those things that's just been true. Like, someone says this or that, I say, both, why not?
Yeah.
So this is a yes. So with the chili oil, we combine 5 different processes of making chili oil to make 1 chili oil. And it just comes out a little red clear thing, but it's cool because it gives you some nuance. You can taste, people see it and they go, oh, I'm scared, it's red, but it's not too spicy. It's actually got the fruitiness of the chili is extracted because we don't do a high temperature. Like, we don't pour really hot oil over it, we slowly bring it up and simmer almost like a tea. And it's so much of like the things like, when you start cooking, you do like, oh, these are the master stocks that I make. Chili oil is one of our master sauces. We use it for the base for so much stuff. Chilies also scientifically, they carry oil. They're oil soluble, so we can carry a lot of fun stuff through the oil with the chilies. We can add more flavors to it, and it's a nice gift to give anyone. A chili is a fruit. When I was a kid, the joke was that I would put on everything but ice cream. But we're currently working on a chili oil ice cream. I'm telling you, it's gonna be very, very good. It's a fruit. You've probably had pepper jelly before, so it would work, right? That's kind of
totally
like
put it on the ice cream.
Hopefully that's enough information about chili oil.
But then the question is,
Yeah.
did or did not your father, your parents know about the college incident, the dorm room incident where you smoked everybody out, saying like, okay, I'm okay for you to move from med school to culinary school? Like, how did that get supported?
It was never an okay, and it was actually in their favor because when I did that, they're like, okay, he's gonna get bored of cooking and he's gonna switch. He's not gonna do it. And even when I was cooking in college, there was no cooking. It's never gonna be my life. My life is medicine, right? So for 4 years, I noticed that I was cooking more and more because I like sharing food. I had more and more cookbooks. I got a job at Sur La Table. I became a top 10 customer of Sur La Table, which is very hard to do when you get 40% off everything. So I had to spend a lot of money over there. But yes, in case anyone wants any cookware or knives, let me know. I still have some stuff laying around. But my roommates thought there was something wrong with me. They're like, why is there a Dutch oven in the bathroom? You know, why is there a cookbook? Like, what is going on? Why are you hiding cookware? Like, there's something, you have a problem, right? And that could have been the case. I mean, I'm fully willing to accept that it could be the case, but it was just really exciting to me to have the appropriate vessel to make something. Like, I really got, like, when I started cooking, I didn't have any money really, so I couldn't buy anything. So my first cooking experiment after this walk from this hand-me-down pan that my mom gave me that I set the apartment on fire was like, I just took like a foil pan and chopsticks, and I was like, I'm gonna make roast pork, and through some very careful, definitely not illegal oven manipulation, I was able to get there, and I thought, oh well, maybe if I can buy this Dutch oven, it can be something that's very exciting. Like I can make an awesome slow cooked braise that was similar to something that I had in a restaurant. It was always more and more of those things. And eventually, like, it just kind of took over my life in a way that my roommates really liked it because they saved a lot of money on food. My roommates' girlfriends liked them a lot because they also got to eat the food. My parents, they didn't care for it so much because they thought it was a distraction from studies. And ultimately, maybe it was, but it also taught me how to study. Like, I learned that if I really wanted to, if I was excited about something, maybe I could practice and get better at it as opposed to just, just memorizing raw information. By the time I hit the end of undergrad, it was a tough decision to make, but I took the MCAT, which is, if anyone's taken it here, applaud you, because it's a very tough test. And at the end of the test, I had kind of like a moment where I was like, so I'm being tested on taking tests to place me in a place that I'm not even sure that I'd be good at. And also, I almost burned my apartment down. Like, you gonna trust me with a human life? Like it's not wise. I don't think it's very wise. So at that moment, I realized the responsible thing to do was, operate on pigs instead, not on people. So we went in the direction of cooking. I tried to tell my parents this is what I wanted to do, and they said, no, you're not doing that. At the time, when this was going on, cooking was not popular. It's not like you didn't want to be a professional chef. If you were a celebrity chef like Emerald back in the times, your career was set. But there weren't people that wanted to become those, or people that wanted to. Opening up a restaurant was. This was in the time when a lot of bad things were reported in restaurants. People doing drugs all the time and fighting each other and things like that. So my parents were just like, we came from Bangladesh to America. We tried to start a brand new life. We wanted everyone. You don't have to worry about all these things, and you chose basically the lowest of the lowest thing to do, which was to cook. And that was a very tough time, I would say, in my life. Very, very challenging because it was the first time I had to overturn basically my entire childhood and existence. Like, everyone has fond memories of what they were, and if they go one pathway, it's great, but if you go another pathway, you really come to terms with like, well, was 13 years a waste? Was 13 plus 5, getting my degrees in biology and psychology, was that a waste? Was doing all these things, was it worth it? Were people disappointed in me? Am I gonna do these? Am I gonna make a difference this way? Am I a bad son? All those thoughts were there, certainly. But despite that, what I remembered, again, was the time I set my apartment on fire and everyone reacted. So I was like, I can make a difference in somebody's life hand to hand. And then I thought about my mom. I was focusing so much on my dad. He's a doctor, right? Great ambassador of Bengali Americans, was always helping the community come in. And the job that he was doing was paying enough to allow that. But you know what they would do? They would come to my mom's house. My mom would make them food, and they'd say, this food makes me feel like I'm at home. I think there's a lot of value behind that we sometimes overlook. Like the way that it can, you're ingesting something. So if I wanted to be an evil person, I could poison you all. That's also another thing you can do when you cook. But the power of food to turn something from an object into meaningful is something that I couldn't let go. Maybe the degree in psychology also helped reinforce kind of these things. But it was really cool that I could apply everything that I learned my entire life to food. It was, if I can write a menu because I know how cognitive dissonance works. I can make a stew a certain way because I understand biology and chemistry. Like these are things that, and then like going through a day in the life of a chef, you're a psychologist, sociologist, librarian, engineer, plumber, electrician, insurance agent, counselor. All these things that happen all in one day. And is it tough? It's certainly tough. Would I have it any other way? I'm not sure. But what's cool is, this is 10, 15 years later. I graduated in 2009 from Ohio State. At this time, my parents' friends, they don't come to visit me at the hospital. They come to visit me at the restaurant. They say, "Hey, we had a good time at the restaurant." At a hospital, you say, "Take away my pain, dude." We're in the business of actually giving people a good time, and there's so few opportunities. The way that the world is now, it's so nice to be able to just contribute something positive. And we believe that with food, kind of all things are possible, and that you can make meaningful connections. I can speak a little bit of Mandarin, but if I can make a proper Hangyo Chao show with chili oil from Sichuan, the way that it was made, and the way some of grandma's was, that means more than me speaking Nihama. It means a lot more. It means you understand somebody, and I love that. I think that's I never get tired of that. It's very, very exciting, and I think my parents are finally turning around to it. I named the restaurant after my mom, so she can't be that mad anymore.
It's incredible that self-realization you had, coming, the stuff that was pumping out of your apartment. And you said that, your family came from, you weren't born yet, right?
No, I was born in Columbus, yeah.
Okay, you were born in Columbus. They moved from Bangladesh to have a better life. Mm-hmm. What kind of life were they coming from? And from the perspective of hey, this is very disappointing for me to hear my son go from, you're on the track in medical school, psychology is your standby. How, from their perspective, can you go and shed a little light of what they came from, and then at what point did that acceptance turn for you?
Sure. I think it's a pretty complex question. As I'm getting older, I come to more and more realizations. I think that, at a certain age, you start to, in restaurant years, I'm probably 500 right now, I'm not sure. But as I got older, I realized that it's not that my parents are disappointed in me, they just wanted, I cannot imagine, Bangladesh was founded as a country in the 70s, so they were pre-Bangladesh, they were East Pakistan. We're also Buddhist, primarily Muslim country, so there's a lot of stuff that they had to overcome to get here. And my dad being a doctor actually was what allowed us to come, because we had a need for doctors in Ohio at the time, and that's exactly what got us here. So I can imagine that a lot probably happens during wartime. It's probably something that I would never be able to perceive because I was not there. But it wasn't that happened. Mm-hmm. It was what they did surviving that, and also what they contributed. They chose to say, hey, we want to make a positive difference. We want to be hospitable to as many people as possible. When I was raised in Columbus, they were never like, hey, be mean to that person. They were always like, hey, try to do your best for the person next to you. Try to bring happiness and joy. I think that happens in many places where if it's an impoverished country, for instance, or if there's not enough food, you'll find that people will give everything. And that's that sentiment of giving is hospitality, which translates to restaurants or what we're doing. Like I said, I think up till maybe a year or two ago, they're still he's gonna change his mind. He's gonna be a doctor or a psychologist. It's gonna happen. The day that I showed my mom the name of the restaurant, because I didn't even tell her the name of the restaurant, and I wasn't sure. It was a very interesting moment because we don't show emotion directly very much culturally. It's something that I'm growing to accept as I get older. But that was a moment where I was like, aha. So, now get me to change.
Right.
And I think that's it's a good way to embody everything that we've been kind of building up for in 4 letters. And some little Easter eggs about the name Joya's. It's spelled in the American way. Joyas. Her name is Joya Sri, Jayasre. It's spelled as you would phonetically do it in America, because I'm Bengali American. I was born in Columbus, Ohio. I wasn't born in Bangladesh. So I have 2 childhoods, right? Sometimes I feel like I don't fit into either, but it's kind of cool to be a part of both and acknowledge that. And it's also mistakenly called Hoyas all the time, which means jewel. And what I say is, as long as you show up, call it whatever you want to. That's fine. But it sticks. It has a good edge. And every time we have an issue, if we want to work through problems in the restaurant, which sometimes restaurants have problems. I don't know if you're aware of that. But when that happens, what we say is, what would Joya do? Because one decision they want to try something, and if they took the risk with us, we should give them double back. Like, it's like, hey, thank you so much for coming here. Be better leaving. We want you to leave better than when you came in.
And is that, I love that. What would Joya do? And what would your mom do? Like, is that what your mom would do? Like, tell me a little bit about your mom. What is she like?
Which half do you want to hear? Do you want to hear the half that sounds better for TV, or? No, my mom is the nicest and scariest person alive. When I went to New York City, I got the opportunity to work at WD-50, Michelin-star restaurants. I got the chance to work at Michelin Chinese, James Beard restaurant. These are both very prestigious restaurants where the culture at the time was very hard ass, is what I would say. They were very much like, you owe us. People would say sometimes they'd say some mean things. Sometimes they'd be very aggressive to you, but it didn't affect me because my mom is scarier. So take care of every single person in this room, and then say your daughter's sons, aunts, uncles. You're all part of the family, always. And in the same token, like to give you an example, like nobody in my family will argue with her because when her voice raises, like it's everybody hides, like, and it's like a running joke in the entire community. They're like, watch out, like, don't engage with Joya that way.
Just getting there.
Yeah. Like, which was great because, like, when you're working with people and you're, I don't know, like a Bengali woman in Columbus, Ohio, how do you survive, like, in an environment where in the 70s, 80s, like, it could have been a little bit more challenging. When she was a teenager and she was here, she did what she did to survive, and like I think she's very much an example of an independent woman that I can draw inspiration from. That shows like there is this amazing energy that I hope that we can translate to like nurturing, surviving and doing good, even when the situations aren't always in your favor. You try to do the best for somebody else. That's what she always does. She's led a hard life. She has me, my brother, and my dad. I was supposed to be the daughter, so there was many things that have happened to get her to where she is right now, and she still every day would put out 3 meals a day, right? With every guest that came, any movie star from Bangladesh that showed up or a musician that came they would come to the Barua house. My mom would house them for 4 or 5 days, make food every day, 3 times a day for them, make them their favorite things. Going to Detroit or Toronto to buy the ingredients because we didn't have a huge Bengali grocery store in Columbus back then. I think Jungle Jim's was the closest we could get.
Yeah.
And that was just, there was no like, it's not glory, it's just what you did. It's I like that. It's to do that so cool. It's very nice.
I love that ethos, though, of what would Joya do, and would we ever see her at Joya's? I have not.
Yeah, she was there for the first 2 months. She made sure that everybody would do what Joya would do. So yes, she was the one that she's like, there's people in line. You give them tea right now. What are you doing? Like, why aren't you feeding them? Like, it's. I was like, there was no excuse. She would come and do it, and it was, as she's getting older, the walking around so much is not the best for her, but she still likes to come and flex every now and then, so to speak. Like her friends come in, she's like, I am Joya, this is Joya. It's just, her first point of conflict was we got these Joya shirts made. We were doing an event, so I got like 4 shirts made because we're a small business. We're desperate, trying to open up in time to do this Taste of Future for Columbus State. My mom came in, she's like, where's my shirt? Oh, it's named after me and I don't get a shirt, and now we make a lot of shirts. So yeah, it's constant inspiration. That's what I'll say.
Oh, I must meet her. We need to make that happen. Yep. And also tying in, you just shared with me. I know you have been traveling, and part of my observation and assumption, I would maybe assume that there is part of it of reconnecting with your roots. Like you did go
Yep.
visit Bangladesh,
Yep.
and you took your parents.
Yep.
And can you tell me about some of the countries that you went to on the travel? What was that like for you?
Sure.
Visiting an area that your parents are from, is that the first time you've been
there? Third time. I haven't been in like 10 years. I went once when I was a wee child, like 5 or 6, and I learned a lot about how to be grateful for everything that I have around me.
Sure.
And I went a second time, maybe after I came back from New York, and this was like the 3rd time, which was over 10 years after the last time I've been, and it's very much a developing country, so it's crazy to see buildings like start to be built. It's crazy to see going from like a tribal village society to a full-out like production plant of the entire world. I think the rule for Bangladesh is, we say Bangladesh is not for beginners, because if you're crossing the street and you're not paying attention, you will get hit by a car. Sure. They don't care. Yeah, so make sure you come prepared. But it explains a lot. I think the best way to describe it is like driving in traffic there. Like when I see that, how much awareness you have to just get into a vehicle and move forward somehow without colliding with anybody else in these tight spaces. Like now I see why I think this way. It's a lot of information, a lot of things happening, a lot of sensory overload. But in the end of the day, the thing is like, it's always about working with people and taking care of people. That seems to be the common trend that I saw in Bangladesh and Thailand, in countries that have a large amount of people, that there's a cultural element of food. And it could be like, here's a hole in the wall that's been here 50 years next to a 5-star hotel. And they're in the same block, and the people, they support each other. Like, that's really cool to see. Like, it's equal access to chaos, is I think what they call it.
Sure.
But it's a lot of fun to be in there. Would I say it was vacation? I'm not sure. It's really hard to turn off the brain when it comes to those things. So inspiration comes kind of everywhere. And then also my parents were there. So you see things a little bit differently. I think I need a vacation from the vacation. I think coming back to America is a vacation because you realize like, wow, we have air conditioning. Like all this stuff that's like, we have clean water. It's very, very nice to have these things just available to us.
Absolutely. I've been to Thailand, but this is many, many years ago. And it was a very beautiful country to me through the people. And had some transcending experiences there. If I say Mai Pen Rai, are you familiar?
Yes.
And I might be.
Yes.
I remember just it's kind of this sentiment, right, of just it's going to be okay, right? And I remember coming back from I was 2 weeks there. It was just doing some. I was working with underserved communities and children specifically, and I happened crazy things happen on my travels, and I stumbled upon. I met a monk. His name was Pratt Frank. And he had invited me into pray for, there was a dying monk who was claimed to be one of the oldest monk that has reached the highest form of enlightenment. And my mind's blown. I can't even understand what this means, but I'm there sitting next to another monk while someone is going through, it felt like if anyone has ever experienced hospice with a loved one, with this unfamiliar being in my presence, and just praying, and I don't know how to pray. And everything, this experience, I can't even explain. But I came home, and this was my pivotal moment. I came home, and I was a creative director at that time, and I remember Mai Pen Rai, everything was just oozing out of me, and that's when I was like, I'm gonna open up a restaurant. And it was being far away from here, that connecting with other communities, and really what it was, and this is where I want to go into with you, it was the fascination of other people's stories. And the way I personally could connect with other people's stories was through the lens of food. And I noticed travel after travel, whatever country I might have landed in, it was never there's the church or Sagrada Familia. It was in the home of the locals, and hearing their stories and sharing those stories, and those flavors became memories to me, but having a deeper understanding with them. And I feel that through your food. And with your recent travels, are there any flavors or personal memories or experiences that you feel that you're going to bring back here?
So part of my travel was 2 weeks in Chiang Mai, learning ancient Thai cooking, pre-World War II, on a farm where we grew the produce literally that we used in ingredients that maybe don't exist around the world. I would hope that with the amount that I invested that I did bring something back. But it was very, very cool to, I think we have a perception, always here in America or wherever we are. We all have our own perception. Cool. Well, you have a perception too. So you see this water. You see the water, I see the water. Are we seeing the same thing?
No.
You have perspective now. 2 eyes makes perspective.
Yes.
So it's always good to build perspective on things, right?
Yes.
When you have a perspective, then you can start to make a conversation. You can describe the water bottle from this side, I can describe from this side. You're not wrong, I'm not wrong. And that's where people get caught up. It's what is authentic, what is traditional? Well, what is authentic and traditional is authentic and traditional to that moment, that time, that place.
Yeah.
I can have the best pad see ew in the streets of Bangkok near the Chinatown Yarawat, and it'll be amazing. If I bring that exact dish to Columbus, Ohio, it's not going to be the same because the environment is different. So why do we spend so much time trying to make that experience when we can make our own experience?
Yes.
Right? with the way that it was done over there or in that frame of reference. From their perspective, this is what I have access to. Can I make this? And I think opening that up, that opens up a dialogue of like some really cool new ideas, food ideas, like things that we can share, things that are relatable to everybody. You know, like that's what we're trying to connect people. We're not trying to alienate people, right? I think that's very important to remember that just because someone sees something one way, it doesn't mean that they're incorrect. It just means that maybe I could use that information to make something great for them. Right? You like it this way? Cool. Well, maybe I can make it that way, right?
I love that.
Yeah, and over there, more than anything, like in Thailand specifically, when you get your most favorite Thai dishes, you see they give you a lime, they give you some peanuts, they give you some chili flakes, they give you some vinegar, they give you some chilies, they give you some salt, and they give you sugar. Why? They want you to customize it. They want you to have your experience with it. They're not telling you, hey, this is perfectly seasoned, don't mess with it. They're saying mess with it as much as you want to. We just want you to be happy, right? So, and I feel like that's one of those things, like you go to some restaurants and some chefs are like, I'm not gonna let you salt the food. And I'm like, how do you know? Like, what is like, are you saying we're the same person? I don't know. Do you smoke cigarettes? Because then your salinity is gonna be off. You have a different perception. I can get into the science behind it, but there's a percentage of salt that is good for most human beings, right? There's a percentage of salt that we can perceive. There's a percentage of salt that's the ideal number. But that doesn't mean it's right for everybody, because depending on the levels of hydration and the amount of messing you're doing with your receptors, you can build a tolerance for it. Right?
Absolutely.
And it's not for me to say, this is how you should have your food. It's for me to say, I want to take care of you. How can I do that, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to get to. It's like, and every time you go to these places, that's what you realize. They just want you to feel good, man. It's not about like, hey, it's not about me giving you my pad thai. Let me remove my ego. The pad thai has its own ego, and it's like a rock star. You know, like I can't make my version of pad thai because the world will kill me, because they know what pad thai is. You know, so it's always like, you know, it's the way that it was described to me is think of some of these dishes as like celebrities, like Taylor Swift, right? So if you have pad thai, you have your pad thai fan base, your groupies of pad thai, and anytime you try to make any changes, they're gonna say, no, no, no. I know what pad, you know, like, so you must be very careful how you approach some dishes. So at Joya's, we have not pad thai, because it's definitely not pad thai. So that is the story behind that. I do not want to make pad thai at all. There's so many people that make it really well.
Right,
so,
let's be clear.
And the second that I change something, it's no longer pad thai, so we call it not pad thai. But psychologically, if I say not pad thai, what does your mind think of pad thai? So it's kind of, that's the layers that we try to work in, where it's the best joke to people come in. Oh, I really like your pad thai. I said, what pad thai? We never sold a single pad thai in our entire lives. It never gets sold.
That's hilarious. And like, it's so incredibly thoughtful and deep, because you are breaking down the theory or the word, like expectation, what we associate with, or what our assumptions are coming into something, coming into a conversation. I mean, this could get very philosophical, but I appreciate that so much. And like, I do feel that when I eat your food, I feel hints of you. And I also would like you to go into like you were born in Columbus. You have like this like nostalgia representation that has manifested into some of your dishes. Can you explain some of that for us?
I think the best way to describe a lot of what we do is, like Shrek, an ogre has like an onion. There's many layers, right? So you can always appreciate the outside, inside. If you want complexity, it's always there. Because from a philosophical perspective or like a food lover's perspective, we have foodies, and they know food very, very well. And Columbus is an awesome, smart population. Contrary to what people say outside, I think we have some of the most intelligent people that will call you out on things that are not right. So we have to have the backing, we have to have the knowledge, we have to gain as much experience as possible to present that first, but present it with zero pretension. Because we want, the way that I describe it is, if a 5-year-old can enjoy it, then we did the right thing. You know, without any description, if you know how to eat it, and I don't have to give you any directions, you can just put it in your mouth and enjoy it, which is why a lot of the stuff we eat with our hands, because you just want to grab stuff with your hands. That is a win for us. Everything that comes after that's just like us indulging kind of other things. But the most important thing is to make sure at the end of the day, the food brings back something. Because trust me, I know that you can go to somewhere else and get the same thing. So why did you come here? And it's not a bad question. It's like, I want to know what can we do to make it worth your time? What can we make to worth your money? What can we make to do those things when I see something and I know how much I have to charge for it? I want to make it more valuable than what the price is. Like that's and you can't just do that by throwing expensive ingredients on all the time. You have to use some intuition, you have to use nostalgia, you watch movies, it's a flat screen, and you can get feelings from it. So we have to do the same thing with food.
Yeah.
I am from Columbus. when I started cooking, everyone would give me crap. They'd be like, well, what is Columbus food? What is Columbus food? And like, is it Johnny Marzetti? Is it a Buckeye? And I said, yeah, it is. It is absolutely, that is Columbus food, but I also grew up in Columbus and I ate like goat curry at age 5. So is that not Columbus food because it was made in Columbus, Ohio?
Right.
I don't know. Like, why are you guys getting like so caught up over like, what is, just make the food, make it taste good. Like, it's like, how about you start with good food and then we worry about Columbus? Like,
right.
it's everyone wants to have an identity and I think everybody wants to claim. Everyone's so like, they say a rose by any other name smells so sweet. So for a majority of my life, I've been told what to do. I've been told what is this, what is okay, what is not okay. At some point, I'd like to say like, if I don't have any of those things, do I just not fit in anymore, or is this how we create? Is this how we actually say, hey, my identity is I've been here my entire life, and I'd love to give back to the community that supported me and raised me. Does it have to be Johnny Marzetti? I don't think so. Like, I do like it though, and I went really far into it at one point. This is how obsessive we get. I looked at the history of Johnny Marzetti and the Marzetti Corporation. I bought a pasta extruder for $6,000 to make noodles for a noodle casserole, and I served once. But that's the other side of it. That's just me entertaining myself there at that point. But I wanted to make sure that when we made the Johnny Marzetti, that you got the one that it would have been the way that Mr. and Mrs. Marzetti would have made it back in the day. Like it was important that there's something to be said about chili mac that's called something else, and stuffed inside of it. And when I did it, I also did it in the way that I enjoyed it in school lunch. So instead of just stopping at, okay, here's Johnny Marzetti, I used to shove mine inside of a breadstick. So we'd hollow out the breadstick and put the pasta inside of the breadstick and fry it. And you get like a completely new dish that's based off of memory. And I think having the memory of the food, sometimes that's the secret sauce. Like, it's not that it's your pasta, it's that this and these things are there. It's how were they combined and what were you experiencing when you eat them, right? And that's sometimes hard to translate in a recipe, but that's kind of what it's all about.
It's so beautiful. And it's also the notion of, it kind of goes back to your uncle with the chili oil, like the sweating. I've heard a few times, like people have had conversations about food, like, oh, this is a food revolution. And there's this one chef, his name is Hadai. He's the most beautiful human being, and he talks about food evolution. So it's the very notion of the things that you're talking about. So you, like memory, food memory, nostalgia. It like if you say like, this is my grandma's recipe. Well, it's not your grandma's recipe. It is what you memorize it. So typically it's like, oh, a dash of cumin and like, a sprinkle of salt. And so as we keep these memories alive, they evolve because like your dash of paprika or cumin or whatever it might be will be different than your grandma's. And then you develop your own flavor and take onto it, and you're evolving the memory. And even just like trying to put a stamp on like what defines Columbus. Is it ice cream? Is it, Marzetti?
It's us. I would say it's ultimately the people that are in Columbus. We're all here and we can contribute. We can choose to say we're part of Columbus, or we can say, I want to be like New York. And the thing that I've stood strong on is I really have high hopes and have chosen to invest like in this city because I believe that I came from here, man. Like we can all do it, right? Like why do we want to be another city? We should be Columbus, right?
Yes.
And I'm just, sometimes I get frustrated because they're like, oh, it's like New York. I was like, it's not like New York, it's like Columbus. You're in Columbus, okay? If it was like New York, you'd be in New York. I'm so sorry. Like, what are you even talking about right now? But it's I think that's the association. I know that people are like, oh, it's premium, but I was like, Philadelphia was supposed to be New York. That's why they call it cream cheese. Like, all of those things, they make no sense to some people sometimes, but we're in a different time and place now. We have almost like equal access to intelligence and technology. Like, it's crazy what we can do with at the flip of a switch. And I think Columbus is pretty good at embracing that. I mean, I can serve a proper Laotian dish like I did at Service Bar with the fish sauce glaze and the way that I would eat it at the Buddhist temple, and people enjoyed it. And I said, we've come so far from like avocados are gross. I remember in the 90s, we're like, what's this green thing? They were eating it, and I was around for that. I was like, what is guacamole? What a strange word. Sushi, raw fish. Like, what? That was in the course of 20 years. Look how far we've come. Now we're like, hey, I'm gonna put this fungus on this thing, let it sit for 2 years, and that's gonna be good. Like, we've come very far. So it's cool to be. I think when it comes to things like this, you can either be a result of the change, you can enjoy the benefits of others' hard work, or you can choose to try to contribute. And we're trying our best. It's our goal to say, hey, like, thank you. Like, I want to give back to the libraries. I want to give back to Columbus. I want to, if I can, like, for the next generation at least, like, we didn't have access to a lot of these tools. So I think it's better to leave it in a better place than when I started.
Yeah. Right?
If we can leave that as a springboard to say, hey, like, cool, you know how to use sous vide, you know how to use hydrocolloids, you know how to ferment things. If that's the baseline knowledge of anybody in Columbus, Ohio, Are you kidding me? Like, we can go anywhere. And you can get a house with a backyard and a dog. You know, in Columbus, yeah. So it's cool stuff, yeah.
It's so true. And yes, I love that notion of, you know, like how can I leave this place better than what I found it? And I know you do that because like I'm not like being a private investigator or anything, but I know your staff. I frequent Joya's a lot. And then there's also some back history of just, you know, being in the restaurant industry. And that, you know, that's one thing. The restaurant industry has changed dramatically, with some operations still kind of hanging on to the old ways. And I feel that from what I hear and what I've learned of your staff and just what I know of you, you've been always on the forefront of culture. Like, how do I create this culture? How do I lead with, you know, with joy and ensuring that everyone's safe? And when I talked to one of your people, your team members, that was the first thing that he shared about you. Like your primary, like your drive for your staff is by far is to make them safe. Keep them in a safe place, like have this safe space to be in that they can keep coming back to. How have you built that culture? Like changing the landscape of restaurant culture?
That's a compound question with many answers. I'll try to do the best that I can. We'll keep it fairly short. I think the most important thing is to realize that there's a problem, acknowledge that it's a problem, and then instead of trying what you know doesn't work, that you've seen 1,000 times, that you were subject to, maybe try something else. So I don't know, like how do you expect, you know, if you can't swim, get out of the water, like what are you doing? You know, like there's one of these things, there's this idea that you want to make a change, right? And then I think it was somebody that was like Einstein that said, hey, you know, Matt, this is repeating the same thing, expect a different result. Technically, we could go into, yes, it is a different result because it's a different time and place, but that's not important for this conversation. More interesting is, if you do what was done to you, how do you expect it to be better for the next person? And unfortunately, we went through a little bit of restaurant trauma when I started cooking. We all did, and honestly, we're still suffering, and that we are forced to fight for, like, can I be a restaurant worker and be treated as a human being once? You know, like it's like people will go all day on the internet talk about how they value and everyone is equal, and then they go to the restaurant and they spit in the person's face, and I'm like, why is that okay? I'm not sure, but I don't think the conversion is to get mad about it. I think the conversion is to make a difference. If you're empowered to make somebody else's day better, there's a chance that that person that's having a bad day is going to behave this way. If you made their day better, they're not going to want to do that anymore, do you, right? Like you can't do it through being aggressive and angry all the time. You got to find a different way. Sometimes some people say the word empathy. I use the word compassion. I think compassion is important to have in our environment. And the cool thing is, like, it's literally our job. We're in hospitality. Like, our job is to, before all time, when the first restaurant happened, we were giving shelter and food to somebody who needed it, right? Yeah. So I didn't discover anything. I'm just looking at history and seeing what isn't working right now and trying to do it different. I don't know if it's going to work, but I'll keep trying until I have options, and then, you know, I'll go be a psychologist or something. So, yeah.
Well, it's experience and observation, you know, and when you're sitting back and you're recognizing, like, all those details instead of just like the pace of life that is now, instead of just like functioning, you're stopping, taking your observations and turning them into like really key ingredients to make.
I think the easiest thing that I do, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know what I don't want to do, and I avoid those things. And that's sometimes it's challenging because it is hardwired, like almost hardwired into our brains that we're going to behave this certain way or do this certain thing. But that doesn't mean we can't change it. You know, at some point we didn't think we were going to be in space or have self-driving cars, and look at where we are right now. So, like, do we choose to say, oh, well, somebody else will think about space, or do we say, hey, maybe I can make a difference in a small way to my community or my environment? And I think if I'm going to, I should at least try. Like, maybe at least try and see what happens with that. So.
Well, you sure are. And some of I have a memory of our conversation over the Joya's counter. We were sharing our similarity of both being introverts. And which is funny, you have two introverts on the stage, so we'll see how this goes.
You won't hear from me in the next 2 months. This is going to have to recharge my batteries.
Exactly. Like, don't call us for 2 days after this. But I think also the misconception of introvert is like associating with being shy. Like, to give you an example, you know, small talk. Small talk is crippling for an introvert. You know, like, where are you from and what do you do for a living? Like I want to go deep. I want to know like how did your parents ruin you and how did you recover and what's your joy today and what are you working towards? And so I think about this because I had to live through this too. And is it hard for you as an introvert in the food business? Because you have multiple roles. You have customer facing, greeting, you have staff training, you have working with vendors. Almost, I would say, you're forced into this extrovert role, multifaceted. Like, how do you cope?
Well, remember, I guess this is a good example. We're here. There's people in front of us. What was the old thing that they'd tell you, like when you would make speeches? Imagine everyone in their underwear. I'm not going to do that because that's very inappropriate. What I would say is, why don't we just imagine everyone as introverts out there?
Yeah.
And if you just look at people as people instead of like you're labeled as this or that, and you want to connect with people, you'll find a way.
Yeah.
If that's what you want to do, you'll find a way, right? I think that's what helps me, because if I try to break it down and overthink it, then I will never get on the stage, and I can certainly get stage fright, and all those things are 100% real. But the way that I go back to it is like, what am I doing here?
Yes.
Is this here to try to help make a positive difference? And that will overpower my ego, because if you think about it, when you say that I'm an introvert, you're just making it about you. Like, well, it's not about me. Like, and why would I always going to bring it back to me? Let's bring it about the people, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's always one of the things that helps, I suppose, because the nerves are still there. The nerves never go away. That's the secret. You just have to manage them.
Yeah.
You never get not anxious. It's going to be always that way, and that's okay. You just have to be okay with it. Say, hey, well, this feeling's going to be here. Can we move through it? Yeah, you can.
And it's so simple, right? Like like the thought of simple, of like the simple thought of like these, I'm just going to think of you and approach this as you share the same space as me as an introvert, and that commonality. We can plow through this. I see you, you see me, and and that's.
Yeah, I would go even deeper and say I see you as a human being, and that means a lot. I think we're all human beings, and that's why do we overlook that so much? Yeah. Like, just start with that, like, and then you try to make it more complicated. Yeah. If you go digging, you'll certainly find. You can always go down that rabbit hole, but just unless you have to, just keep it simple. I think.
Yeah. Let's walk into Joya's for a second.
Okay.
From my understanding, Joya's was not intended to be what it is now. Like when you got the space from AJ at Sassafras Bakery, you had a different idea. And how did that? This is like secondhand news, not from you. So if I'm wrong, let me know. But from my understanding, you had an idea for that space, and then it did evolve to what we are experiencing, thank God, Joya's. How did it get there, and what was your original vision?
But actually, it's the case with both restaurants. I signed the lease for Agni before the one at Joya's, actually. So that was the spot that I was looking at. Joya's came up because AJ was selling her espresso machine and her equipment, and I walked into the space, and I was like, there's natural daylight in the kitchen? I've never seen such a thing in my entire life. Like, this would be a really cool office space.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be really cool. I just got back from some TV stuff, and people were asking. They said, hey, we see you as Avishar, this identity instead of this person that's behind the kitchen doing stuff. And it's crazy that 7 days of TV, I've been cooking for 10 years, and the 7 days of TV is what did it, but that's cool. I think that's an awesome opportunity to be able to share what we're working towards with the entire world, and even bring me here like right now. That's a great opportunity. So get requests for cooking classes, for demos, for motivational speaking, whatever. It's different requests than not just like, hey, make me food. Now making food is a side benefit, but those happened, and I didn't have a space to do it, and I was tired of illegally. I was tired of doing it out of my house. There's some stuff that was like it's very hard to do it as a sustainable business owner, right?
Yeah.
So I said, well, this could be my consulting space. We'll just do our private dinners, and we're getting requests for 4 or 5 a month. And I see a counter there with a coffee machine, so maybe I'll just sell some coffee in the mornings. My staff will be me. Maybe I'll hire a chef, but I'm a chef, so do I need to hire a chef? Somebody to run the register, and that'll be it. We opened up with 4 people, and we currently have 30 people on staff right now. So for an 18-seat restaurant that sold 173 breakfast sandwiches on Sunday. So
get out of here.
Yeah, so I did not plan on any of those things. But I did notice that people were knocking on our door a lot, and they're like, hey, like, are you gonna open for breakfast? And at first I was like, get out of here, man. I'm trying to do my own business. Like, I don't go to your house and tell you what you're supposed to do. Like, don't tell me how to, it's my space, it's not your space. I ain't got to pay rent. You don't pay rent. Like, what the heck? So, I pay taxes, I pay insurance. Like, why am I the one that's supposed to do all this stuff? And then at the end, I was like, all right, you guys are being annoying enough. I'm going to open up with some breakfast items that are inspired by my cultural travels at a Bengali American cafe. And here's Joya. So, it's you have to be willing to just accept that sometimes the universe, you guys have seen The Bear, but it was like the episode of The Bear where everything, that was our day one, our machine broke, everything was, every moment of terror that was there. But, that was interesting because now I'm the business owner, right? So when everybody's coming to me, what is my response? And this is the most important, pivotal moment is like, you get to decide now, how is this business gonna run? And I said, hey, let's take a break. Let me go outside. My brother was there, luckily. And he said, go outside, talk to the guests, and say, hey, like, we don't have the capacity. We really appreciate it. Refund everybody. And say, we're not going to make anyone pay anything. Thank them for coming in and give the food. And this is what happened. Like, everybody was very, very scared. But we go out and we talk. And what do you think the first thing that somebody says? They said, hey, no, thanks for being here. We really appreciate it. It's not, the world is not always the way that it's meant to seem. And then the second and third person said, no, like, we'll come back again and again. And I was like, you waited an hour and a half for a chicken sandwich, you're gonna come back? Like, what's really good? But when we saw that moment, when everything fell apart and the community supported us, we're like, we're here. That's it. Like, we'll do whatever we can to help those who helped us again. And
These are our people.
Yeah, for sure. And it's amazing to see. Like, you hear so much about this negativity, and that's the positive. Like, that's the stuff that started off our business, and that's what we're trying to continuously improve upon. Because now we're maxed out on space. People are like, there's no chairs. I'm like, well, there's only 18 seats in the restaurant. I don't know how we do 200 covers, but we have people sitting at other people's patios.
Yeah.
But it's all like, it's kind of it's infectious. Like, it's really, really cool that when people come, they get to have a moment with the food. And it involves my mom's name, and it's a Bengali American cafe in Worthington, the oldest settlement in Ohio. And we got on the James Beard semifinalist for Worthington, Ohio. What the heck? Like, that's crazy, right? Like,
it's magnificent.
Yeah, but that's only because we chose to listen to our guests. It's only because we chose to interact. It's because we chose to work with people, not to say.
Very decision.
Yes, and so I'm really glad that people in Worthington are so stubborn and knock on the door so much, because otherwise it wouldn't be what it is. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to focus in and hone in on one menu item, just to highlight and build the appreciation, because I am pretty confident not the average person really knows what goes into one of your menu items. And this, to me, is a huge reflection of you. So the double crunch cheesy brisket taco.
Ooh, yes, okay.
Okay, so we all love them. I even have a story about my son with them.
It's a good thing I have my notes just like ingrained into my blood now. So the joke is I cooked 10 years and I got known for tacos.
But you know what? I feel like there's always that one menu item that like the chef's like, I cannot get rid of this. Like, everyone will turn on me. So first, can you just describe, like, if someone was like, hey, what's this double crunch taco? Can you describe it? But then I want you to go into the operations of it, the prep, the labor, like all the details of those ingredients, because then
Are you opening a food truck for tacos? Is that what you're asking?
I'm taking notes over here, because then next time you go, you're like, oh, here's like $35 for this taco, and you'll completely understand why. But I really feel like this speaks volume of who you are.
I mean, it's just my interpretation of Taco Bell. Like, we ate a lot of Taco Bell as a kid. It was like one of the things that like my family could afford to give everybody at the time. When we kind of started off, it was one of the things that when I worked in restaurants, it was the only place that was open. One day I went to Taco Bell when I was working in Delaware, and I said, hey, I want this cheesy gordita crunch, but what if you put a Doritos Locos shell in there? And that person behind the counter was like, that's a good idea. And they gave it to me for 15 cents. It was excellent, 15 cents extra. And the idea was like, cool, like double the cheese, because you have a cheesy shell on the inside, double the crunch, textures, flavors, amazing. Taco is a great platform because it allows everybody will drop their guard for a taco. No one is gonna, I'm not gonna say nobody. I have a hard time seeing people using a fork and knife for a taco. I've seen it for pizza, chicken wings and stuff, but tacos are very hard to fork and knife. So it kind of forces you to interact with the food. It's very carnal, it's very, very pleasing, and everyone has a reference point. It looks almost exactly like it. And the story will have a second layer, I'll tell you after this first layer. But it looks I'm sorry, it's got so much so that Taco Bell sent me a notice through Instagram, and I was terrified. I was like, uh-oh, it's finally happening. They're going to drop the lawsuit on me. And what they said is, we really like what you're doing. Would you like to come to the original Taco Bell headquarters and we can show you how we do it? And I was like, I flew out to Irvine, California, and I got to see the James Beard stuff is cool, but going to Taco Bell, like the first Taco Bell, come on, man, that's really cool. So I got to go to the test kitchen. I got to see them make they had unveiled like 7 menu items that are out right now, and I got to see the process of development. It was really, really cool, really awesome moment. But yeah, it was just inspired by Taco Bell. So the more complex answer, and I'll break it down to it's relative parts. I was getting a little discouraged with cooking for a while because I was working at a place and it hadn't opened up as a restaurant. So I was chef, you have a desire to create things. And I really like American barbecue. I think it's one of the coolest styles of cooking that is uniquely from here, where it's like you're putting smoke and salt on stuff and making magic happen. So I started getting into smoking meats. And the first time doing it, the first 3 years, it was terrible. It was absolutely, I was like, oh, well, should I cook it to medium rare? All these things it's the opposite of most cooking. So I burned through all of those, and I finally started doing little briskets and things, and I saw a smoker for sale in Maryland, and I was like, I'm gonna go buy that smoker, because if this doesn't work out, I'm gonna start my ice cream and barbecue business. That was because I like ice cream and I like barbecue, so I said, what else do you need? I'm gonna show up at weddings, and who doesn't want barbecue and ice cream at a wedding? But also don't take my idea, but it's still doable, yeah. I was like, these are the two things that everybody likes, and it's partially from Ohio. Ohio's got a cool ice cream history, and the barbecue is we have a lot of history and ancient, and it's really, really cool that we can use things like bourbon barrels to smoke meats. So I had bought that, and then I started making stuff, and I was like, well, with good barbecue restaurants, how do you serve the barbecue? You have to slice it to order, right? You have to slice it and carve it for the good places because it keeps the moisture right. You can't cheat that. You have to do it that way, otherwise it dries out very quickly. I can't do that. Well, I could, but not in a regular restaurant. I need to have a barbecue restaurant. I'm not good at barbecue, so how do I find a way to serve this barbecue in something? So I said, well, like a Taco Bell, they have the steak, right? And it's these little cubes of meat. So what if I took brisket or a smoky meat and took the fat and the lean half and half? Because some people like it, some ways, some people like other way. The mixture is always good. Take the extra fat off, but do half and half and put that as a base for a taco. And I was like, cool, that's checked off. Okay, brisket, done. Texas rub 23, so we made a barbecue rub. In most Texas, they'll do salt and pepper. I'm in Ohio. We like putting lots of stuff on lots of stuff. So based off the wonderful high streets, which 2 of my restaurants are on now, Route 23, we made a rub 23 because it has 23 ingredients. And it is a pain to make, and no one likes making it, but it was like the base of that. Really cool. We wanted to add some Ohio flair to it. After that, we said, okay, well, how do you make the tortilla shell? And we said, well, we're not gonna nixtamalize our corn yet. It's a lot of steps to do. Maybe one day we'll get there. Hopes for the future. But is there someone that we can work with locally that makes tortillas? And Cookies is Sullivan Avenue. Turns out that they make the perfect size tortilla for our application. And we said we have to have the crunchy on the inside. Because my memory of Taco Bell is a crunchy taco. Even before Mexican food, I was disappointed when I was a child. We went to Mexico, and I was like, "Where's the crunchy?" I didn't. Where's the ground beef and the crunchy taco? I was like, I don't understand what's going on. You have to understand, this is how far anybody can come to the point where we are right now. I had zero appreciation for food as a kid. I would just eat candy. Literally, I would throw the food in the trash, and I'd eat the candy when I could. And my mom she'd get very upset because she could find the wrappers of the candy, and she wondered how I knew that it was in a pillowcase on the top. And she knew it was me because only the Tootsie Rolls stayed, and the banana runs. So that's another thing we don't talk about. But anyway.
So there's stuff for my kids.
Yeah, so the crunchy taco was the number thing. So we had to of course we had to fry them ourselves too, so that's a pain because each shell is made individually. You can only make 6 at a time in a small fryer. We had a small kitchen, that's why we needed a second fryer. So we could only produce 6 tacos at a time. Annoyingly frustrating, but it's worth it. You have to make it that way to give it the crunch. You have to fry it at 325, not 375 for 7 to 10 minutes so it stays crunchy even when it's wet. Outside of that, the next layer is you need to have cheese in between the outside and the inside. And the cheese, I like the Amish cheese in Ohio, and they make this really cool Pepper Jack cheese, that lightning jack's what they call it.
Yes, they
so
do.
I was like, how can I make that into a queso? And with a little bit of cyan sodium citrate, we can make a queso sauce that is local cheese water and melty. It'll hold the shell, the glue together on the outside and the inside. The outside cannot be a gordita because, well, they already got a gordita, and the gordita they use is not a proper gordita. It's actually more of a pita. So we looked into Bangladesh for my favorite bread of all time, paratha. The problem with paratha is it's not easy to make, and most people buy it, but we make every single one, and it's a 2-stage lamination process. So you have to laminate every single tortilla twice in spirals, which to this day, if you walk into Joya's and you see Marta, she'll probably curse you for how much you like these tacos. But we had to, not only do we have to do it that way, but then we're like, well, remember the part of the story that said this is the nacho cheese shell? It looks red, so how do we get it red? And that was a process, because if you take turmeric or you take paprika, it looks that way. When you fry it, it changes color because it's cooking. So we had to do a special combination of 2 spices that you can ask somebody else about, because I'm not going to tell you right now. But we only say that because when you ask, you'll retain the information, because it's a secret. If I just tell you, you'll forget it. So that has to be fried to order. So every time you get an order in, somebody's scrambling to get it in, because the best way to do it is to deep fry it at 375. Most restaurants run their fryers at 350 because they want to preserve the quality of the oil. We know that we're finishing stuff with oil, so it's really important to make the outside like crispy, but still soft. So it comes out, it goes on a draining rack, and it has to wrap around the inside shell. Right away, if you wait 45 seconds, it'll crack. It has to go right away while it's hot, which is it's fun sometimes, and other times it's very painful. So we have shell, cheese, shell, meat. On top of that, we wanted to do a sauce. My favorite sauce at Taco Bell was salsa verde, and it has come back, thank goodness, but it's come back in a different form. So I used to get hot and verde sauce. So to do a green salsa, we actually used a sauce that I liked a lot from a restaurant called Al Paza. It was salsa guasacaca. I was like, this sauce, they call it cilantro sauce. It's so good, and it goes well with barbecued meats. So the green sauce goes on top of the meat. And then the next step is you need to build the taco the way you would build a taco. So we wanted to use lettuce is the next thing. So we use a slicer to shave the lettuce very, very thin, because if you cut it too big, it's not fun. It's like you don't want strands of lettuce. You want to have like angel hair lettuce to make it look like Taco Bell, because if somebody sees it and it doesn't look like Taco Bell, they're going to call you out. It's like very, very hard to make the product that's already manufactured. And we're trying to discard, look, everything I've told you, they just have to think Taco Bell. No, neither. So we dress that with what would be like the red sauce, and ours is a salsa macha, which we use the aforementioned chili oil, peanuts, sesame oil, chili crisp, vinegar, agave, and honey to make the second sauce that dresses the lettuce, because no one likes plain lettuce. That's just a fact. And part of the fun of Taco Bell is hot and cold, and textural contrast. So you're stacking all these things. On the top layer is double smoked cheddar. It's from Middlefield. We had to put it in the food processor, but the way you press down on it affects the texture. So you have to press down the same pressure, otherwise it shreds like pizza. You don't want to shred it like pizza. You want to shred it like silly string. It needs to look like silly string for it to be perceived as Taco Bell.
But doesn't that clump, like when it gets into refrigeration?
It could if you don't know what you're doing, yes.
More trade secret.
But that's why refrigeration is important. Like all of those things we learned, we didn't automatically know how to do these things. We had to figure this all out step by step by step. So then the cheese is there. And then, okay, so cool. Now this taco is done. Now guess what? We make it 3 ways. We make it now with smoked and braised beef. We make it with chicken that's fired over wood, that's marinated in my mom's spices, because you want the chicken. Some people want the chicken, because in Taco Bell you can have chicken or beef, right? We make a vegetarian version that has Marta's refried beans, and it has cheese on the inside, so it's like a double-decker with sous vide barbecued sweet potatoes.
Oh, wow.
And then we make a vegan version, which has none of those dairy products and is completely vegan. And then we also make a gluten-free version, which is 3 tacos that are crunchy.
Wow.
And that's why we charge $18 for tacos. So it takes a lot of time to make 2 of them.
36.
And we give you 2. So like, one for now, 1 for 2 hours from now. That's the cool thing. It is the best party gift. Like whenever people come, they're like, I'm going to Denver. I need these tacos. And they'll just come and they'll take 12 and they're like, I can't be accountable for any foodborne illness that happens over the next 8 hours, but you are your own person.
You must have do you have one staff person just doing the tacos, just taco station?
It turned into eventually.
Yeah.
So when we started it, we had no idea how big it would become. And now it's so dialed in. And the reason that we dialed in is like, we took Taco Bell as a model. We said, okay, this place, they'll hire someone who has no experience in food, and they can produce this consistent product that tastes good to the majority of people, and they can make it very, very easily. So we tried to make it a way where you don't have to think about it, because it's really fun. Everyone has this perception, like, oh, I want to make this thing, and you make this beautiful piece of art. This 2 tacos are done. So what if you get 20 orders of that? It's no longer beautiful. Yeah. It's like now you got to get it out. So we had to streamline the process so people could just focus on the quality of the food. And yeah, we have it set up like it's its own station. We have a holding cabinet for the meats. We have the cheese ready to go, and then we have we have to get another fryer because we're making so many of them that it's not sustainable at this point. So.
I have no more fryers to sell. So help us imagine. Okay, so the appreciation of that prep, the level of thought, detail, experience of every layer of the taco, and I feel like you're so nuanced in your approach and just like the complexity. Help us imagine how you as a chef, like thinking through one dish like this, going to Top Chef, where no matter you have like as limited as 10 minutes to 30 minutes to pump out a dish. Like how did you transform that like thinking and get into that mentality? Take us to Top Chef.
I would say I didn't win, so I didn't do it fully. I didn't do the best job, but I did an okay job, yeah. There's two sides. One is that you've worked in a restaurant. When does everything go according to plan? Like, when do you show up and you're like, there's like a funny internet video now of like, here's how people perceive restaurant owners, and this, it's like somebody giving you like a glass of champagne when you walk in. Oh, I'm taking off my sunglasses in my Ferrari and I'm a restaurant owner, and they show like the reality is like you're carrying these boxes and falling all over the place, and like it's that's more of the reality is like in general how we pivot or adapt is what makes us, I think, better chefs sometimes, because of course it's not going to go according to plan. The plan is just there for guidelines, but when it falls apart, what do you do? That's how you respond is what makes the biggest difference. And Top Chef is full on responding. It doesn't hurt that my mom made me do some theater stuff when I was younger, that I did stage crew, like that I got a degree in psychology. All of these things are very, very useful when you are being filmed by 6 people, 2 people on your audio the entire time, while the time is going down and interacting with a producer. Like that's no restaurant really will prepare you for all of those things. So you just have to change your mindset. You have to go very quickly from I'm going to show that I'm a top chef to the world to like, how do I not get sent home tonight? Because only 1 person or 2 people get sent home. So pick differently. Don't show your ego until the end. I don't know if that's to say that. That's like some of the rules of competitive cooking is like you think it's about like doing your best. Well, it's not. It can be, but then what happens is you've maxed out and now you're going to drop, and then in the middle you get sent home. So you have to be very, very careful. Listen to the rules of the challenge and just do the challenge. Don't bring your ego into it. They'll tell you to. They'll be like, show yourself on a plane. I'm like, in 45 minutes? Like, what? You're like, you're asking a lot of me. But you just go, what can I get into a plane? 45 minutes, that doesn't suck. Make sure the temperatures are right. Make sure it's plated. Make sure it's ready to go. Those are how I find the best success. Whenever I got in my own head, that's when I got put in the bottom, because I was like, I'm going to do this thing. And it's kind of like, this is Tom and Pat. These are people that I look up to. They're gonna respect me. It's like, they're making a TV show. It costs a lot of money to make a TV show. There better be some good moments, and you better show them. Like that's our role. Is we are the talent, but our if you think about 200 people in charge of 15 of us, and how much money that might cost, it's not free. It's right.
You almost feel like obligated in a way.
If you view it that way, it becomes a little bit easier, because then your interactions become like, oh, you can see this is a business interaction, not like do you want me to react this way? And sometimes the answer is yes. If you did something bad and you get snowballed, like of course they want you to cry, because if you don't feel that, then how are you going to show the passion through TV? And the thing that sucks about that is with something like Top Chef, it's tough because when you have lows and downs, you feel them. Because these are people that you respect, and you're being judged by your peers that are chefs, and these are people that you looked up to. They're all coming to you, and when something is bad, they tell you to your face. They say, hey, this is like, you messed up rice. This is the first thing that I ever learned how to make. You messed that up. And now I have 5-year-olds that don't even know me. They're like, you don't know how to cook rice. I'm like, God, just like, so that,
you're getting rice shamed.
It stays with you forever, kind of. And I think the strength in that is when you see that and you go, I can still continue to exist and I still want to cook. Then you're prepared to do anything. Like, imagine being like humiliated on national television and going through imagine as an introvert being humiliated.
If you survive this.
Imagine my mom, who didn't want me to cook, seeing me mess up rice, which is the first thing she showed me how to cook on national television.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So yes. And look, I'm still here, so it's okay. It's fine. Here. It's fine. It's we mess up, and it said the failures are what define you. Like the failure, it's okay. You did it. Your fear of failure is now gone. I'm not afraid of, like, okay, now that happened. Did it suck the 3rd and 4th time? Yeah, for sure did. Right. But it's the first time, like, I really got there, and I'm like, I'm going home. Like, there's no way I'm gonna make it through today. I'm not qualified to be on this show. I used to watch the show. A lot of the chefs that I respect around here, they made a mistake. They picked somebody they meant Columbia, the country, not Columbus, Ohio. It was the wrong Avishar. There was all sorts of things that I was telling myself to tell me that I was not capable of becoming on Top Chef, and I never should be on there. And then I stopped for 1 second. I said, remember when I started cooking? How cool would it be if I saw somebody that was like me, that went on from Columbus, Ohio, that just decided to show up on TV, and they got there? What does that mean? And that's when I was like, okay, I'll do it. That's why I was like, if I can make somebody's day a little bit easier and realize the potential is there, like I'm just a person. That's just a person. Anybody can do it. Like that's worth all the insults, embarrassment, and like that. It's fine.
You're positioning yourself to be like a role model. Which is amazing.
I don't know if role models were just giving like clearing a path, so to speak.
Exactly.
I don't want to be something to somebody who doesn't want that necessarily, but I know that it can be very lonely sometimes when you're trying to carve a path or you're trying to do stuff and it isn't culturally acceptable or familiar. And what I would hate is for somebody else to feel that way. I don't like. So
that is compassion and empathy right there. Has your relationship with food changed over the past decade?
Yes.
Like in what ways? From like, and I say decade, maybe from like where you started to now. Like how has it changed for you?
It physically it's changing that I don't get to make as much as I'd like to, but that's just unfortunately for right now. It's the most important thing for me to give the tools for others to be able to make a difference because I'm getting a little older, so I can't be on the line every single day. And I know I look like a young, but it's all the push-ups. That's what it is. When I hit 50, I'll look like I'm 80, so it'll come back and get me. The deal that I made with the devil will wear off eventually. But it's more rewarding for me now. When I started cooking, like I said, I didn't have any cookware. I didn't have any equipment. I didn't have any knives. I had to buy all my own. And, the process of when I was younger, I was like, oh, look, I bought my own knife. Everyone should know how it feels like to buy your knife. And that's very selfish because, like, it's just a tool, man. Like, you use it to cut. You use it to cut. Like, why are you making this so sacred? You should take care of it, and you should use it. And I'd be willing to buy you a knife if it helps you cut easier. Because what I don't like is trying to cut with a dull knife. That kind of sucks. So, like, giving the tools like that. You want to make pasta? How many places can you go where you can actually extrude your own pasta? That's a $6,000 machine that we bought for you to express your creative desire to make a macaroni noodle or Johnny Marzetti. Like we set up our kitchen in a way that people have access to any tool that they want, provided they have a destination they want to go. And we encourage that 100%. And look, I think I can make things taste okay. But the real awesome part, you were talking about stories. Everyone in my restaurant has a story to tell. I'm not sure they're ready to tell it yet, but I want them to because I think that's what makes a restaurant a novel experience. The restaurant is about the people that are in it. My name is just on there because I went on TV sometimes. Like that's just fine. It's just the way it is. But with that, I'd like for everybody to show them what it's about because they do the work every single day. Like they do a lot more demanding physical labor. They have to deal with all kinds of situations. They have a life outside of all those things too, and it's very challenging sometimes. So I think that why wouldn't I make their day a little bit easier? Unfortunately, I don't get to then cook as much as I'd like to, which is why I went into it in the first place. But in the same token, like if you ask me, like we'd make this stereotype about burger flippers. How many of you guys know how to make a good burger? It's not that easy. There's smash burgers, there's stack burgers, there's stuffed cheeseburgers. Burgers can be completely cultural. If you said, hey, Avishar, you have to make 2 smash burgers every day, the rest of your life, 1,000 of them, I would never get tired of it because I had to give up so much to get there. I didn't get the chance to make it was never okay for me to make burgers. So I had to change my entire life to get to that place. So I think that's I never get tired of actually making the food and what it does. Like it's never once left my mind as like no matter what it is that I'm making, even if it's like a hot dog that's pre-made, I don't care. Like I'm just excited to be able to give something to somebody that makes their day better. And that never fades.
I love that.
But I don't get to do this much anymore. So yeah.
Do you feel that you have found your voice?
I'm working on it still. So it's I think it's growing, but my voice also is like it's using that is it's tough because especially now like we're so like afraid of what we might say or I don't know like you don't know what I don't want to make anyone's day worse. So I try to do the thing where my mom taught me, she's like, it's better to just keep your mouth shut and think that everyone think that you're stupid than open it and confirm it. So I'll try to be quiet more. And what is nice is I get to listen more. This is the first time, like you're making me talk too much. I never want to talk about this again. But it's, my voice is oftentimes we have similar voices, I think. And the only way you can hear a similar voice is if you actually listen. Yeah. So I try to listen more because I think I know what I am. So now it's time to hear what somebody else is and incorporate that. Like, I think that's more important. I know my own story. I've lived my entire life. Like it's not important for me to talk about me all the time, which is what we're doing right now. But precisely what we're doing right now. But don't make a habit of it. Yeah, it's more rewarding for me to say, hey, like, what's up? Tell me what's going on with you, and then you go, hey, I can relate to that. Hey, and before you know it, you have 25 things that you share with somebody else that you didn't even know because you wanted to make this TikTok burger. So yeah.
And are we sure? Okay. Let's see. I was going to, I'll do that as the last question. Do you want me to do the speed round or
before we get there, because that looks fun? I just want to open up if we could to the audience. If anyone has a question, we'll probably have time for 1 or 2 from the audience, and then Dara has a fun way to end tonight's program. So I'll start over here.
Yeah, you may not feel comfortable answering this question, and that's okay. But besides your own restaurants, where would you take someone visiting? Like what, like for lunch and dinner? Like where would you take them for your favorite restaurant?
Depends on the day. I would say like picking your
okay.
favorite child, and depends on what I would ask is what the person likes. So if they were like, hey man, I really like Vietnamese food, I'd say go to like Fuck You Na or Hoang, and the name of the restaurant is Fuck You Na. That's appropriate, I promise. That is the name of the restaurant. I'm not swearing. Hoang or Mi Li for banh mi. Just depends on what somebody is looking for. Like if somebody's saying, hey, I want to have some Sichuan Chinese, I can give you 3 recommendations like chili spot. Like it just, it depends on the person. I've been in Columbus long enough that I think I have an idea of what would suit their taste, but it always depends on the taste, because if somebody is not like, if somebody is vegan, I'm not going to send them to, like a steakhouse necessarily, automatically. But if you send me a message, I can happily tell you, give you more results. So.
I just want to say, first of all, thank you for chai. Your chai at Joya's is amazing. It's the best chai I've had in my life, so
My
thank
mom's
you.
recipe, I didn't do anything to it.
Well, thank her.
Literally
Thank-
exactly how she makes it.
Thank you, Joya. Can you talked a little bit about your staff in the restaurants. Can you talk a little bit about specific ways that they have influenced menu items, both at Joya's or Agni?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I start with the framework, and we go into production, and we see how they want to produce a dish, and then we tune it in for that. Some stuff, like when you make like a paratha, for instance, they found faster ways to do it. What I've been pushing on, which I think comes out really nice, is when we're like, hey, like, what would you think if you added some of your stuff onto this dish? And that gives some of the best inspirations. I think what's challenging, and this is talking about the voice thing, is I don't know, like, I guess what I am, or to the restaurant, or what my role is supposed to be. So I don't want the ego of Avishar to say this is Avishar's restaurant. It is going to be that way. I know that. So trying to find a balance of like, hey, like maybe we can say we cook like Avishar, not like it's Avishar's recipe. And maybe that's a creative process that helps tune in how everyone can contribute. Because ideally, like, I want it to be everybody's menu, not mine. Like, and I think that can be done with just some creative exercises, so to speak. A lot of our favorites have been 100%. Like we had a really cool mole dish at Agni for a while, and that was Marta made the tortillas, and she's from Oaxaca. And there's a very funny story about how she worked at another restaurant, which I will. And they wouldn't let her make tortillas, and I was like, she can make them from like scratch. Like she can build it. It's crazy. So we don't even have to like. There's no direction given. It's just I say, can you make tortillas? She says yes, and it's done. Like it's so amazing. If you ask me to do it, it's not done. It'll be like 4.5 months of research and 2 months that I won't talk about, and then we will just we'll just buy the tortilla. So there's a difference. So knowing what people's strengths are, I think, is a key in that. A lot of people aren't given creative freedom. I think creativity comes from having a strong foundation. The comparison is, you see the Mona Lisa, you go, that's awesome, I'm gonna make that. You're gonna make it without paint, you can make it without a canvas. Like, okay, I see you wanna go there, but sometimes giving the tools to build that up is even better. And my job is to try and just to help get to the destination, so to speak.
Hi. Do you ever look back at Veritas in Delaware and think about the difference in your life then?
Oh yes, certainly. Veritas was a very interesting time as well, because I was just doing my third year at Columbus State, and the idea for Veritas was not to be what Veritas is right now. I think it was going to be like wine and grilled cheese was the original concept, and it was going to be a chef, and these things were going to happen a certain way. And as life would happen, concepts change, people change, and it was presented as an opportunity to be like, hey, like these specials that you're doing at 1808, like what if we just made a restaurant? Like that's just the stuff that's special, because like when you're producing 180 of anything, it makes it a little bit more complicated to produce some craft products. So the start of Veritas was actually it was a really cool journey to Levittown, Pennsylvania, where we did a workshop with a place called Ideas in Food, and we went with some questions. And then we're like, hey, like I want to use these fancy chemicals. I want to learn about molecular describe these things. And when I got there, the first thing the person way that we wanted to could answer the questions, but we focused instead of saying, hey, what will this powder do to this thing? Is well, why do you want to make it that way? And that sort of thinking led to a lot of interesting questions and curiosity of like, hey, can we make strawberries and scallops taste good? Can we do this and this? And you have to be very honest with yourself. And if it's not good, you just cannot serve it. You cannot let your ego get in the way and say, I think it might be good. There was a lot of things that were not good. There was, I would say, a lot that was not. And luckily, the majority of it didn't make it on the menu. But sometimes we look back and we're like, man, there was some crazy stuff that we were doing. And this square footage with, I remember basically the oven that we had in there. That it was a jewelry store before, before it was a sandwich place, and the hood was barely. It was very, very tough kitchen to work in. There was all kinds of interesting things, but because those were all not a factor, because it's like, hey, we don't have the best tools, we don't have the best anything. Can we still make it work? We did make it work, and it was really cool to say we're serving small plates in Delaware, and these things are, like we're serving sweetbreads, foie gras, like at the time in Delaware. This is we're asking a lot. We had a lot of people that wouldn't come in because we don't have a TV, and that was a statement. Where we did have 2 TVs. They were behind the mirrors. We just if they came in, they wanted. We were like, nope, no, we don't have a TV. Well, we didn't pay. We paid for the really awesome mirror screen, but we didn't pay for the pad, because back then the TVs had like you had to have like a sight line, so we couldn't turn it on. It was like impossible to do, so we couldn't watch it even if we wanted to try. We didn't have a mirror in the bathroom, for instance. I don't know how people don't remember that. Like for 2 years, you'd go to the bathroom, you're like, I can't see myself. Like, am I a vampire? Like, there's a bunch of interesting things that were. But in the end of the day, there was a push for us to just like, we're just like, whatever. We're in Delaware, no one's gonna notice. Like that was kind of the idea, and we started doing all kinds of fun experiments. It came together, and it's amazing. Like, look, it's in Columbus. Like the goal was always to be able to produce something that's like like Columbus has never seen. I think we did that. I think we were like very, very scared, certainly, and we were sometimes frustrated because you put your heart and soul into something and nobody shows up, and you just have to be okay with that. You have to say, hey, like, we'll try again tomorrow. You can't be upset about it. If you get upset about it, then you'll get discouraged and you'll quit. But some of the best restaurants in the world, for instance, there's a restaurant in England that started off as a pub in a place called Bray, and they'll just serve as burgers. And the guy there was like, hey, what if we did something different? What if we made it into this restaurant called the Fat Duck? And it turned into very quickly. It went from almost being closed to a 3 Michelin star restaurant. They said the day before the guide came out, the checks were going to bounce, right? Like that's the situation that they were going through. I think Delaware, Ohio is relatively nice in comparison. Like it's like there's so many opportunities that we're afforded. It's a question of if we want to utilize them and if we want to stay persistent and true to our goals. And I think always the goal is like, if we want to contribute, we have to do the best for the next. And sometimes it's even above like my standard. And that's okay, because we owe it to our guests to have the best experience. You're paying money for an experience. With the exchange of money, we want to make sure that you get double the value. Like that's my idea. Is like I want you to feel like if I get 125, I want to make you feel like 250. It's really important that you feel like you're taken care of, because I think that's kind of where the value is. Like, hey, you get it, and you want to offer more. Veritas turned into that, and it was really cool that the support was there. People would drive all the way from Columbus to Delaware. I made some of my cool foodie friend connections. Silas picked out half of the food media that year, so it was really cool to see those things. But man, it was really tough sometimes, because it was just if you're left to your own thoughts and you don't have many people to bounce it off of, you can talk yourself in and out of anything, and it's not always like the right thing. So it's important to have balance, and important to have perspective, I think, to just see how we can develop and get better. There were some very, very funny nights, though, I will say.
We'll turn it back to the stage for the wrap-up round.
Yeah, kind of like a closing quote I wanted to share and to share with you specifically. So I'm going to mention Hadai Ofayim. One thing that really stuck with me, it moved me. He said to me, he said, I want to cook for you because I want to get to know you, and I want to be less afraid, and I don't want to fear you. Because I want to, when I am less afraid and I don't have the fear, then I'm able to love you. And he also said the notion of, it's not the food that tastes good, it's the people that make it taste good. And I want to explore with you, with everything that we're living in, even like, gosh, I feel like our world has been on fire since 2020 or even before with elections, and do you feel that we can heal and solve problems through food?
It's a complex question. I believe that if I can give someone something to eat, it's a start, right? It's because you need food, you need water, you need shelter. Those are basic human necessities. We're trying to connect with the basic human necessity, and it's I think I always try the best that I can for the person next to me. Because maybe I don't understand them, but can I make the day a little bit better? Food seems to be one of the ways. I would say, movies are a way. Like there's all these things that You could also say that the food that we produce is, technically it's a luxury good. You don't need cheesy brisket crunch to survive. Some people would argue that, but it's not a requirement for life. But it's an exchange for a little bit of a token of happiness, so to speak, an endorphin rich, whatever you have. And I think it's very hard. I think even Napoleon said that you can't win a war on empty bellies. It's like everybody needs food, and that is a need. I'm in the business of helping people when I can, and that's one of the ways. I don't know if it can solve problems because in Bengali culture, this is interesting. It causes problems because people will argue whose beef is better, whose biryani is better, and this is a debate. The tradition is you're going to get into almost a full-out fist fight at the end over whose biryani is the best. It's not no, you made this wrong, you used the wrong fish. It starts all kinds of conflict. It can do that too. So I think it's just dependent on the situation. Yes, it's my uncle is a very good example of that, where it's First 15 minutes, excellent. Everyone is satisfied that we're sitting around, we're looking, and then it comes out, and you're like, uh-oh. Don't say it. He's like, why did you use this fish? And you're like, oh no. It's traditional to use this, and it's traditional to use that, and I would also argue on the other side of it. You look at both sides. We're looking at very positive, but realistically, you look at how people argue over food on the internet. This isn't how you eat the food. Why do we have to spend so much time? In the end of the day, it's food. Yeah. We're making food. Okay, I'm not trying to solve a lot of more complex problems in existence.